Hello, this is Virtualis the Chess Noob, learning and having fun with chess. I've been on a bit of a roll lately, having had a string of wins. Now, this is mostly just good luck, but with having just entered the 1300s, it's feeling good. Today at lunch, I had the white pieces and my opponent used the Pirc Defense, which is one of the Hypermodern openings. I don't usually like playing against Hypermodern openings as I tend to find them confusing and end up in weird positions. In this game, it ended up being happily smooth, as a blunder in the opening by my opponent resulted in me being a piece up. Please enjoy! All right, let's have a quick look at the review. So I played very well in this game, so almost 90% accuracy, the opponent around 75%. As you can see, we started off reasonably equal in the opening, but then the opponent makes a blunder. And I would say that this blunder is not obviously a blunder in the context of the game, at least from my perspective as someone who's sort of at the beginner intermediate level. So it's really interesting that it was a blunder in the Pirc defense. Let's have a look at this now in context, in the analysis. Okay, so I had the white pieces. As usual, I led with e4. The opponent played d6, so I already knew something interesting was going to happen. Now, whenever the opponent doesn't immediately try to fight for control of the center, I think it's good principle to try to take the center. So d4. Now the opponent played knight f6, so I knew that it was a Pirc defense. So that's partly because when you're playing the game, chess.com tells you what the opening name is. Here, attacking that piece, logically I need to defend. So a knight c3, opponent plays g6. So this is one of the hyper modern openings, a Pirc defense. Here, logically play the other knight when you can, so knights before bishops. Opponent now fianchettos their dark square bishop, so bishop g7, and here logically, putting an extra defender on that pawn, given that's sort of staring there. So now there's sort of 3 defenders. That's all looking pretty good. And I'm gratified to see that apparently this is straight up the theory for the Pirc defense, the classical variation. So here I wasn't playing any particular theory. I don't know the theory to the Pirc defense, but it seems to make sense just from basic opening principles. Now, the opponent now does an interesting move. So bringing out their bishop, so bishop g4, attempting to pin the knight to the queen. And so, this is an idea that, you see in classical games, like, in the Italian, in the Vienna. It's interesting in this system. It's straight up a mistake, plus 1.9. I considered trying to kick out the bishop, but I thought I didn't necessarily want the queen straight out. I just wondered whether or not I would sort of get into trouble. So I thought, look, I'll unpin my knight with the bishop. Opponent short castles. Here I thought I could short castle, but it seemed like I had a potential attack on the knight. So if they take, I could take back. Queens then look at each other. If they capture my queen, I'm reasonably happy because then I can capture back with rook. We could have queenless middle game, and my rook was already controlling an open d file. So that seemed all right. Here, the opponent decided to make use of their bishop. So with the pin, so obviously it's now unpinned. So they straight up whacked my knight, and I thought, oh, that's okay. And this is the blunder. Again, is it obviously a blunder that's +4? I don't think it's obvious to me, but it was. And I think the idea is I can capture back, and now I've got that relatively powerful attack along that long diagonal. Now the opponent opts to capture, and I was happy for that pawn trade. Now still threatening that knight. The queens are looking at each other, and I've got that attack. So 3 attacks potentially. Capture, capture. I thought that was good for me. +5 now for me. And I saw this. I wondered whether or not the opponent was going to do something about that, and they didn't. And so whack. They capture that pawn. That's fine. Now take the rook. And that makes sense, to try to trap that bishop. However, now that I'm a full-on piece up, I thought, why not? I'll just take that. They can take back, and I can evacuate my bishop out of there. And so that's what I did. So that wasn't the most accurate move, but you know, it's still, you know, it's sort of into +7 territory. So I'm doing really, really well in the early middle game out of the opening. Here I thought, let's trade. You know, I'm up on material. Let's trade. I was a little bit surprised I didn't straight up capture that bishop. So I'll take that pawn. Captures there. Now here I thought I did need to be careful. I did need to be careful. You know, that bishop and that rook are potentially going to cause me trouble. You know, if I'm not careful, you know, I could end up with with some sort of check here, or if that knight moves out of the way in the wrong place, you know, here would be a check and then sort of capture my my rook. So here I thought to bring it back. Afterwards, when I was analyzing, I thought, yeah, like, you know, with so many pieces off the board, why do I need to castle? I could have straight up just moved the king up into that square to provide an extra defender, but I didn't see it in the actual game. Take my pawn, that's fine, still +6. Now I need to sort of move some of these bishops back to safer squares. You know, so moving back again. Yep, that might have been a better given that I'm also threatening a pawn. No, again, move the bishop out of the way here. And after I make the move, so the best move here is a fork of the rook and pawn. You know, if the opponent tries to give a check, you know, again, happy to trade. That works well for me. So here, I didn't actually see that, so I decided to play more conservatively, brought the bishop all the way back here, now fully defended with the pawns, and from this position, I felt I now had some good ability to castle, move in for the attack now. The opponent, I think at this point, saw that I still had that potential fork, and this is when it was on their turn that I saw the move, and so opted to trade bishops, and so that's fine. And so now it's rook and pawns versus bishop and knight and rook and pawns. So I should definitely be winning here unless I make some serious mistakes. So castle, take my king sort of out of the center where it's a bit exposed. Move the move the knight up, and I thought that sort of next move there's a potential sort of potential attacks. There we go. Again, I didn't expect them to straight up do a capture because now I've got 2 pieces and 3 pawns versus 4 pawns. Again, I should be winning. And so here's a bit of shuffling. You know, here, you know, just some pawn play. Move the rook in, not the rook, the knight in. Push the pawn. Potentially, there's an attack. I expected that. Now, however, I can move the knight out of the way, move it back, move the king, and now that pawn is definitely lost. Capture back with the bishop, and here potentially I saw that there will be a way of undermining their chain of pawns. Of course, not to that square right away. So that king moves out of the way, which is excellent. They move forward. Now let's move the king up to bring an extra attacker. Aha, now 2 squares away. King's all the way up. And yeah, the bishop can now at least capture 2 of the pawns. So trading that bishop for 2 pawns is a good bargain. There we go. And now really it's a matter of just going for the win. Now here I don't make the neatest move, I suppose. So the neatest way here would simply to be putting the king here, which now allows for a red carpet for that pawn to promote, and that king will be forced to come down this way. I didn't quite see that. I pushed forward. Here I was really thinking my moves carefully because I was just worried I could end up causing a stalemate. So I bring the king back. Again, that probably wasn't the best move. But now I've got the pawn. And here, you know, I've got moved up, and here the opponent resigns because basically they don't have any choices. They have to move the king either here, here, or here. If they go here or here, that promotes to queen. If the king moves here, there's a very lovely checkmate idea actually. So that would be check. King has to come here and then promote to queen that would be checkmate. So that queen is protected by the bishop, sorry, by the knight, and that knight is protected by the pawn, and that pawn is protected by the king. And a king would be, yeah, a very nice checkmate. So yeah, I think the opponent saw all those saw all those options and opted to resign at this point. So good game, GG. One of the interesting things I observed is that sometimes tactical ideas from classical openings simply don't work in hypermodern systems. My opponent attempted to pin my knight on f3 to my queen, which is not an uncommon idea in the Italian game or the Vienna game. In this match, however, attempting to do so was considered a straight-up mistake by Stockfish, giving a +2 advantage to white. I don't know enough about chess to really understand why, but my hunch is that this attempted pin, which undermines white's control of the centre, is much less effective when black isn't directly fighting for control of the centre with their own pawns. My opponent also had a tendency to trade pieces to reduce the tension, and most of these trades seem to end up being advantageous to me. Certainly, this might be something to consider when playing the Pirc Defense. Reading about the opening, it seems like the Pirc Defense is a sound setup, but probably not the best opening for beginners. I hope you found this video interesting, and thanks for watching.